Hello, happy Saturday. Ooh, feedback. Okay, that should fix the audio. Yeah. Ooh, haven't had that in a minute. Anyway. That's like classic streaming mistakes. Anywho. I do love it when people double bag a specimen. Thank you, everybody. Alright, so I've got a little robin, and there's moisture in the bag, which is just a thing that happens sometimes. Wow, that paper towel did not tear in a useful way. So I just want to make sure I've got that ready. Hi, Chardon Mom, good to see you. I got a poof of bird smell off of this guy, which isn't necessarily a big deal, but it's like he's got tar on his wings. Little friend, what have you been through? Well, I was already slightly trepidatious. Knife makers, eh? Yeah, no, they were cool. You know, trying to bump around on Twitch and find other people who might have similar interests to me. Woodworkers and knife makers. It was fun. Okay, this... And you're bleeding. Oh, okay, this bird's gonna be... I mean, every one of them has some sort of mess. Death is bad for you. Like, there's always something going on. This little dude is a Juvenile Robin. You know, the speckles. So I'm expecting molt. There's some sort of substance on his wings, a little bit here and there. And he's got ants on him, and he's bleeding. So, good stuff. I picture you one day using a custom set of hand-forged scalpels and hemostats to try made by fellow Twitchers. Wouldn't that be rad? Actually, something talking to the knife people taught me about was kiridashi. It's these little Japanese knives that are effectively like one-piece X-Acto knives. So it's these really cool, sharpenable, small blades. And I was like, ooh, now I want a kiridashi or 6. And yeah. Anyone cooking chicken? You can eat a robin. There's enough here. This little dude's been through some stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily eat this one. Yeah. Let's move those ants. Where did I get this from? Oh, I know what that's from. Alright. Yeah, those are just little black ants. It's not super uncommon to find ants on collected birds. You know, they're looking for chow. Dead bird is a perfectly legit option. I just don't want them on my specimen. And they are, of course, super dead. They've been frozen forever. Where's this guy's data go? Wait, does this one not have data? Oh, no. This one's data was emailed to me. Where did I put that? Nuggets. I forgot about this. So, okay, so this specimen was picked up by the member of the public, and they did give me the data for it, and I put it... No, I did this work at some point. Where did I put my data? Well, step 1, I didn't put it in a super logical spot. That would have been cool. Nuts! Oh, what absolutely stupid place did I put my data? This is why you keep your stuff together. Okay, so this bird came in from somebody, and they gave me 2 birds. and I had to bother them to send me the data, and then they did. And so this is no longer on that person. This is on me. Not keeping track of my data. Sorry. Fudge. Fudge and darnation. That is so annoying. I could have sworn that I associated it. Oh, that's so annoying. Sorry, I'm ignoring you guys. Kitty Visit is on. Yeah, Tuesday probing goes, all the fun. Alright, let me turn off Kitty Visit. Good call on that. And that'll give me a second to mentally recombobulate so I can try to figure out where my research data ran off to. Boop, Kitty Visit is off. Thank you. Okay. Here's my course of action. I received the data from the collector. I transferred it to a document. I printed that document. I cut the part out I wanted for the previous specimen. And then I had an additional strip of paper that I should have saved for this specimen. Should have. I mean, this is fixable because I should have the data still saved as a regular document, because those are from just stick it in here. That would have been funny. Okay, I did not just use it as a bookmark, which is a thing I would totally do. Oh, that is annoying. Left and right. Okay, well, let's see if I have this on my computer real quick. I believe I emailed it to myself. So let's... Because I can print it later, I want to have the data because people want to know, like, where'd the bird come from, stuff like that. And, like, by gum, I want to tell you. Okay, so I do have the original data, so if nothing else, I'll just reprint this after my stream. Okay, so this bird was found in Wheaton, Illinois. Unknown cause of death found on a sidewalk in August. Okay. And actually that date corresponds really nicely with the feather patterning. So this is a bird that was born this year and made it to August. Sorry, buddy. Rough for you, little friend. So. Yeah, and found on a sidewalk, cause of death unknown, so I don't know what I'm going to find when I get in here a little more. But yeah, this definitely is a pretty young bird. Okay, well, that's annoying that I don't have my data right at hand, but I have it almost right at hand, so I can still proceed, and it's still going to be a research specimen, and that's what I actually care about. The last thing I want to do is be responsible for losing data. Like, that's literal stuff that would keep me up at night. What is this stuff? Ah, and here's a moment where I'm super wishing I still had access to a microscope. There's black splashes or speckles on it. It almost looks like tar, like road tar asphalt. It does not look like insect damage, but I can't see close enough, so I'm going to mark that down on my sheet, and then I'll start taking my data. So I'm going to say black splashes on the inside of the, what is this, right wing and belly. So I haven't seen anything on his back particularly. Some feather damage, but that doesn't tell me a lot. Yeah. Not sure. Okay. Oh, I have the notes started anyway, so that'll remind me to look. Ooh, and I'm losing feathers from kind of odd places. I wonder if this is like a cat kill. Because I'm losing... You guys can see there's like a bunch of damage here. I'm losing feathers from that region. I thought it was just wet. Get in there. Oh no, this boy is ripped open. Ooh. Yeah, okay. Can you guys see? This is just open. That's a big tear in the skin. So, I wonder if our little friend is a cat kill. That'll be interesting. Okay. So, find out more. Alright, well, let me start my official data, now that I've poked at the bird a little bit. So, I always have to flash. I love this guide. Cross the ID guide. If you ever want to know what the bird is in your yard, this is one of my favorite ones because they're photos that have been photoshopped into these crazy composites to give you, like, the best idea of, you know, what you might be looking at. His waterfowl guide is even crazier, because it's like every variation, because ducks go through these crazy seasonal changes, and the dude's like, okay, I'm going to take a picture of every one of them. And it's delightful. So anyway, American Robin. 368. There we go. CSI Bird Law. I'd watch that. Alright, I thought I had the scientific name correctly, but I always want to look it up. So, American Robin, that I wasn't worried about. It's definitely, like, the plumage is so singular. No other bird in North America really looks like an American Robin. Their scientific name is Turdus. There's that. Turdus migratorius. So I am not entirely clear what Turdus is from. Migratorius is pretty obvious. They do, in fact, migrate, sort of. So Turdus migratorius. American Robin. Alright. So, for any of those viewers who are less knowledgeable about robins, I'll read you the blurb because I like it. Very common and familiar in gardens, fields, and just about anywhere, with trees or bushes. Often tame and approachable. Takes a few hops and stops to pull out a worm. Sometimes will stay motionless for a while with head tilted as if looking with one eye. Follow it and it will often go to its nest, usually just above head height in the fork of two branches. In the fall, migrates south, often in waves of hundreds or thousands in evenly spaced flight, which is strong and direct, and gives a thin "tsi" call. They will suddenly descend on trees laden with fruit or berries and glut themselves. Newly cultivated or flooded fields are also favorites. A musical song, cheerily, cheery up, cheerio, and several different calls. Like, what a friendly description. The other thing with the CrossFit guide is, like, you can tell when the guy has opinions about birds, and clearly the guy likes robins. They're just friendly birds. They're pretty common, they have a nice wide distribution, and so as much as it sucks that this one has been removed from the gene pool, we're not super concerned about them, so, you know, that's nice. It's still useful for science. You want to collect the common ones as well as the uncommon ones, because you don't know who's going to be common or uncommon in the next 50 years or 100 years. Get the data now. That also helps you track changes, so maybe it's not going to be any more or less common, but their patterning will change, their distribution will change, their size will change, you know, all sorts of stuff. So, alright, so we've got our friend there. Let's start getting some measurements. So, starting out with bill length. That's an even 20 millimeters. Bill depth. Is 7. Bill width. That nice wide thrush beak. Is 12. Head length. Mr. Frightful, you said Turdus is apparently just Latin for thrush. Turd is a homophone from a different root. Alright, there you go. Yeah, these are a big old American thrush. Ooh, yeah, there's a big wound on the back of his head. Yeah, I'm gonna have to deal with puncture wounds on this guy. I bet this one was nailed by a predator. It's tough when you're, like, learning how to bird. The whole getting eaten thing. Okay, 47 millimeters. Okay. Yeah, the more you know. No, I appreciate it. That's something interesting is I've known people who studied Latin in high school as opposed to taking an existent language like French or Spanish. And now I'm all jealous. I'm like, ooh, I kind of wish I had taken Latin in high school. Or I guess at any point after. Since it's so useful for scientific nomenclature. So, yeah, missed opportunity. It also doesn't help that I just suck at languages overall. So, that's a different issue. Okay, so... getting that wing cord. We're looking at 147. It's a big enough bird I actually have to pull up the tape measure. I can't just use my calipers. Tarsus length. Doop-doo. Man, I got my camera too low. Sorry, guys. My English is terrific, thank you. Even that, I trip, stumble, and fall on English, gotta say. Let's see, where are we at on this guy? Just over 30. Say 30.5. Tail length. I should do this on the tape measure. Tail length is 110, right on the button. And total length. Oh, you're just bleeding all over, small friend. Okay. Oh yeah, that neck ain't right. There's something going on in here. I'm worried for the whole head and neck region. This is not feeling like a healthy bird because it's a dead bird, but you know, still. Okay, 240. Moved a little bit. 246. Ah, okay, wait. Let me just take that one more time. My fingers keep slipping off of his beak because it's so bloody. Like, this is a messed up little friend here, unfortunately. No, I'm still coming at 246, so rather measure twice and be right. Alright. Oh, you are a bleedy small friend. Okay. Okay, I'm trying a different thing with my scale this week. I just have a old plastic plate. So, and that tears it a little bit better. So, alright. So let's see what we got for our friend here. Coming in at like 75. Yeah, like 75 grams. Is that, yeah, 75. I'm gonna give that a 75. Okie dokie. Man, where are you bleeding out of? Okay, yeah, he's bleeding out of his mouth. Hold on a second. This is gonna look super rude, but I remind everybody the bird is dead. I'm going to take a small quantity of cotton and jam it down his throat. And it looks super rude. It really does. But I need it to stop leaking blood everywhere while I'm doing stuff. The bird does not care. The bird is super dead. Okay. Alright, so I've got my basic measurements. Let me get a couple more notes in here. So basic observations here. I'm not sure how much you guys can see. There's some sort of wound on the back of his head here. I can mostly feel it. Like, you can see the feathers aren't laying very smoothly, and there's a chunk of something. So I don't know if I get in there if it's going to be an actual hole. It doesn't... Not really obvious. It's damaged. It might just be crusty. So I've got that going on. And then, where did I find that massive... There we go. And then we've got this wound here, which actually has, like, torn skin and exposed muscle. Interestingly, though, this is not bloody. So if this had happened when the bird was alive, obviously you bleed when something cuts you. So whatever killed this guy, which might have been the head wounds, this, I think, happened afterward. But there's, I mean, the crushes, like, I can tell that there's tons of bleeding underneath here. Yeah, there's tons and tons of blood under the skin back here. What's that? I think his shoulder's broken. Don't quote me on that, I'm not totally sure, but I think there's something going on with that shoulder. Wait, yeah, like, this is an opening for sure. How weird. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything on the other side. Now the other side's in perfectly okay shape. Okay, so that's his right shoulder. And left side of the head, right shoulder. So wounds to the right side, back side of skull, and left shoulder, skin torn. Alright, so I'm just gonna have to keep adding notes as I go, because this is the fun CSI forensics part, what killed this bird. If it is a predation thing, that's kind of cool data, you know, so most of the birds I get are window strikes, and so the information I have is about animal-human interaction. But if I have one that's killed by another animal, that's just a different kind of data set there, which is interesting. Yeah, I still know what that black grit is. Oh, and he's skinny. That's pretty common. It's a lot of work learning how to be a bird, so young birds tend to be pretty skinny. So we'll see when we get in there. Okay, and then with molt, he's got his great first set of feathers. Those are all shiny and new. I'm not seeing any flight feather molt. So, and that makes sense for an August bird. So he had been birding pretty well, actually. Yes, I'm not seeing any signs of molt up here. What was that? Nope, the tail looks good. I think I can feel I'm gonna have some body molt. Yeah, so I'll confirm that as I go, but otherwise, not as molt-tastic as I was afraid he was going to be, so that's kind of cool. So, okay. And I got blood on my datasheet. That should be like a bingo spot. Did I manage to get blood on my datasheet? Yes, no. Alright. Put that aside. Okay. So I think that's all I'm going to be able to observe from out here. Yeah, and he's just generally kind of ratty, but that's another thing that young birds tend to be. They haven't figured out how to look, sleek and perfect yet. So, yeah. Alright, well, let's get going. Alright, so for anybody who has not seen my stream before, I am going to cut the bird open. So, if you're not interested in that, you can minimize and just listen to audio. It's pretty cool anyway. There won't be fountains of blood, although since this guy does seem to have some sort of damage to that shoulder, there may be, like, visible blood. So I don't know what people need, but just giving you the heads up. Want to give you the fair shot. So the first thing I'm going to do, I wet the feathers across the belly, because I can just then part them aside, kind of like how if you wanted to do your hair, you could just wet a brush and then brush your hair back. Chardon Mom, you said, do animals have blood types like people do? Yes, they do. Yeah, I don't remember how it corresponds to every species or anything like that, but absolutely, there are blood types that have to be taken into consideration. And my understanding is there's some species that have, like, a lot of them. So, humans only have, what, like, 4 or 6 or something like that? Okay. Little friend, let's move this aside. Alrighty. So, for step 1, there's the bird's naked chest. I haven't done anything yet, I just wet the feathers and move them aside. They naturally just don't grow feathers here. That is not true for ducks and certain other species of, like, water birds, but generally if it's a perching bird, they just don't bother growing feathers there. They also don't have feathers directly under their wings and a couple other spots, and that minimizes weight. It's ultra efficient, and then they just fluff their feathers, like you saw here, over that central part, and it's fine. Birds are good at birding. Alright. Let's get my scalpel assembled. But yeah, blood type is actually something veterinarians have to pay attention to. And there are, like, you can have your cat or dog be a blood donor at certain large veterinary practices or universities or things like that. And they have to take blood type into consideration for that. Of course they do. How else could they get their Japanese horoscopes done? Good point, Mr. Freifel. How will they know who their perfect match is if they don't know their blood type? Obviously. Alright. So, let's get this guy rolling. Man, that neck keeps wanting to twist. That's kind of weird. So we'll start out up here. There we go. I was chatting on a different Twitch channel yesterday, and people were talking about skinning rabbits. And it's funny because skinning a rabbit is technically much simpler than doing a bird. Like, you make a hole and then it just comes off. But the skin is much tougher. So the bird, the skin just lets go and has no fight to it at all. But to get a nice skin off of it, it's a lot more technical detail. So it's an interesting balance. Alright. So there, I cut into the muscle a little bit. I was already pushing too hard. This guy's that delicate. You can see that thin layer of skin moving aside. Oh, I forgot one of my lights. That's why this seems so dim. Ha ha ha! Better lighting. Sorry about that. I'm like, man, it seems so shadowed tonight. Yeah, lighting. Alright. Ugh, yeah, not a speck of fat on this little guy. Well, maybe deep in there. Okay, there is a little bit of fat. Young birds just generally don't have any fat on them. They're spending all of their fat growing bigger, generally. And so they don't really stash it away. They're trying to manufacture good flight feathers and bigger muscles as fast as possible. And so this guy is a little skinny, like his muscles haven't totally filled out, so he wouldn't have been a strong flyer. But I believe there is actually a little bit of fat. So let me mark that down before I go any farther. So I'll say trace fat in furcula. All right. Yeah, now that I'm messing around in here, I can see a little bit more. Yeah, there's a little bit. Well, good for you, little buddy. You were trying. You're doing your best. Being a bird's tough. Okay. Then here's the part where I have to obscure it a whole bunch so you guys can see that muscle pretty well. But it is pretty wet and sticky, so get my wood shavings in there. Because what I really don't need is have to do a whole bunch of extra cleaning later, so I'd rather obscure it now, start absorbing all that moisture, and have cleaner feathers. I will wash a specimen if I need to, but it can obliterate scientific data if I do. And so I'd rather not if I can avoid having to hit it with Dawn dish soap. Which is Dawn dish soap is great for cleaning live birds, and it's great for cleaning dead birds. And it's funny, the Dawn dish soap is aware of that, and they actually like changed their branding, so there's pictures of like penguins and ducks and stuff on their bottles. They're like, wash your dishes, also this bird. Alright, cool. Whatever marketing focus group got you that. I don't mind having a picture of a duck on my dish soap. Okay, so I'm working on his left shoulder just to start with to see if I can see any of that damage off the bat, and meh, not really. Not so far, so there's not a lot on the front of the bird. A little concerned about what the back's going to look like. But so far, no visible trauma. So. Yeah, what if a future researcher wants to look for cat saliva? Exactly. So I don't want to wash it if I can help it. Like, they may... I doubt this, but maybe they can pull DNA off of it. I have no idea. More likely things are like figuring out, what these weird little speckles are, those splash marks, or finding pollen or other pollutants, human-based pollutants. There's all sorts of interesting data that you can get from dust. So I don't want to obscure that, but you have to make sure there's a specimen at all, and so sometimes you do have to wash the specimen if it's like, dirty. Clone the robin, clone the cat, see what happens. Just reenact the whole scenario over again. I'm sure that's exactly how it would work out. Totally. That's how science works. Although the Field Museum, all the museums in Chicago and, I don't know, everywhere, have been doing various online content and videos, to keep people interested in their stuff and keep their name alive out there. And the Field Museum just did one about the cryogenic tanks that they have in the basement. And I love going into the cryogenics room at the field. I never had to do it very often. I dropped off tissue samples like twice. But you would walk by it. It was just in a hallway to get from point A to point B in the basement. And the cryogenics room in the Field Museum looks exactly like a cryogenics room should. Whatever you're imagining... It looks like that. There's a glass, chest-high window that you can look through, and it's these huge silver canisters, I don't know, big arm's length across, like huge barrels, beautiful brushed steel canisters. The top goes when you open it, and it's covered in blue LEDs and readouts. That's what a cryogenics canister looks like, obviously, and it just delights me that that's actually what they look like. The stuff inside is not super exciting. That's one thing that Jurassic Park got vaguely right-ish is they keep the DNA samples in ampules that are like this big, so you're tiny little morsels of whatever critter. So you don't open it up and have like a whole dinosaur pop out or something like that. It's just all these ampules, but the lab is very satisfying just in that it's what sci-fi taught me it was going to look like. Every once in a while that does actually work out. But it was fun to see them doing a piece in there. And it's about, how cold it is and all that. Yeah, no, Jurassic Park, it's what you picture. So that little canister that dude has, of course, is absurd. That would never be able to keep cryogenics that cold, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. But those little ampules in the little holder, yeah. Although at the field, I don't think they're always in holders. I think they're just kind of chucked in there because they're made of plastic, so they're like, whatever. But there's like cups of them. Yeah, usually when I was walking past there, for a while, I volunteered. Okay, so I volunteered at the field for years, and I'm still technically a volunteer, although 2020, we can't go in. So I get updates from my managers, and, it's very social, but I haven't got to do anything. But one of the things that I have done in the past is called Dozin' with the Dinos. And Dozin' with the Dinos is a program the Field Museum does. And a lot of other museums have things like this. Like the museum I worked at had Bunkin' with the Butterflies. Everybody has a version of it, where children in groups or with various setups can come and sleep over at the museum. You bring your own blankets and sleeping bags and mats and whatever, and actually lay in one of the galleries and sleep in the museum. So you get to live all your night in the museum fantasies. It's very cute. And so part of that, of course, is activities. And I would volunteer for Dozin to lead or to support some of the groups. So I never led it. They had like the staff members lead it. But I would be there to help answer questions and make sure the group stayed together so that people didn't get lost in the bowels of the museum and all that other good stuff. Ooh, what are you? Interesting. So that was fun. And part of that tour to get down to the CRC was past the cryogenics room. And we usually didn't stop and look because it didn't have anything to do with paleontology, and it was the paleontology tour. But it was fun when people are like, what was that? Because you can't help but notice the big polished, or the brushed steel canisters with all the LEDs and whatever like that. Oh, it's the cryogenics lab. Whoa! It was great. And then we go look at humongous dinosaur bones. And also very small dinosaur bones. And, those tours were fun too, because the whole point is that, it's kind of a small-ish group. It's only like, a dozen people, 8 to a dozen people. And so they could kind of self-lead. And so we'd get down there, and Constance Van Beek, who is one of the head preparators, she runs the McDonald's Fossil Lab that I volunteered in, things like that. Connie would be like, okay, so what do you guys want to see? And she had like a highlights tour that everybody got, but then people would be like, I want to see dinosaur eggs. Okay, sweet. And we just go like open drawers, and here's a bunch of dinosaur eggs. These are from China or wherever. And, other people, I want to see pterosaurs. Okay. It was great. And it's so funny, the stuff that they have in the storage of museums that are, like, actually quite crap, but the museums own them for reasons. And I doubt I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. It's just funny. The Field Museum has a specimen that is belovedly known as Bob the Mosasaur. And Bob the Mosasaur is mosasaurs are a aquatic reptile, an ancient aquatic reptile. And Bob is so named because his armature is stupid. He was basically purchased by some rich guy, like a dentist or somebody. I don't remember who it was. And so it's this long-bodied reptile with flippers and a big head. And so they built the armature as a hoop. And so they basically bent this reptile into a circle, which is okay, fine. I guess that made it look cool. And the whole circle is held up with one steel pole, and badly. And so if you touch any part of the armature, which of course visitors aren't allowed to, but when the museum staff have to move it around, the whole thing bobs back and forth. And it just makes your blood run cold, because it feels like at any moment this whole terrible armature is just going to come crashing down and destroy this fossil. So that's Bob the Mosasaur. And he's a pretty low priority specimen because it's some piece someone bought from maybe not the most scrupulous buyers, so the data's kind of bad, and the specimen wasn't prepared super well, but someone donated it to the museum. So they have it, and it's a mosasaur. Like, it's a nice specimen in a lot of ways, but it's going to be, I bet it's going to be like some intern or something. Their job is going to be to delicately remove that poor creature from this horrible steel armature and at least get it into a drawer, you know. Oh, obviously, Bob is in a hoop because he had to fit in the den next to the roaring fire and the what. Yeah, it's so silly. It's so silly. Yeah, and there were a few specimens down there that people could touch. Okay, and by the way, I should talk about what I'm doing. Sorry, I just severed the neck, so now the head is just lolling free, but all the skin is intact. And this way I can skin the body out, and I'll do the head later. Sorry, I'm just feeling chatty, y'all. Obviously, people jump in. If I'm doing something and you're like, what the hell are you doing to that bird? Please, interrupt me. Because I'm just waxing poetic about extinct dinosaurs, as opposed to this completely extant and very, very, very common dinosaur. But anyway, there's stuff in the basement that was touchable, and that was kind of part of the highlights tour. And so, like, one of them was I want to say it's a Brachiosaurus femur. I'm suddenly blanking on... No, it's a big sauropod. I'm not going to say whose it is. I'm completely blanking on whose leg it is. But anyway, it's a giant femur. And, like, the amount of damage that people could do by touching it is pretty freaking low. It's got a layer of protective material on it. It's like a resin. And, yeah, and so, everybody gets to touch the humongous femur, and that was cool. And, there were a bunch of casts, and they make casts of dinosaur bones so that you can send the cast to other researchers. And, so these are real high-quality casts. It's not, there's not, like, visible bubbles, and, it's all smoothed out. They're, like, super fine casts made of, like, really expensive polymers and whatever like that. So if you want to study Sue the T-Rex, her head is currently on display. It's not on her mount, but it's on display in the museum, or there. I'm sorry. Sue the T-Rex changed their pronouns, so you can't see their skull in person, but you can ask for access to a cast and do your various measurement and research and whatever like that with a cast. So those people got to touch as well. And those were kind of cool. Because they're real good. Like, there's just such high-quality reproductions that it's pretty satisfying. You do not get to touch Sue the T-Rex's skull. I have never touched any part of the Sue the T-Rex skeleton. It is one of my favorite fossils. But I have gotten to use and play in the sand that its gastralia used to be stored in. And that sand is now in a box with my specimen on it, because my specimen I'm working on is this huge skull, and it's so heavy that if I put it on, like, just a flat table, it would probably start crushing whatever little knobbies it was sitting on. And so when they were changing out the Sue the T-Rex exhibit to make the current one that's on display, I got some of the really, really, really nice sand that the original thing was on display in. And that is just the nerdiest thing. So for everybody who's like, this is the dumbest story I've heard, I respect that, but trust me, it made me happy. I don't know how else to give that context, but it total fangirled me. And Constance Van Beek, my lab manager, is one of the people who worked on Sue the T-Rex back in the 90s when that specimen originally came to the field. And she has all sorts of stories about that specimen, and is just generally a rad human being. So if you are ever able to take a tour that features Constance Van Beek or see her speaking at some sort of conference, super recommend checking her out. Okay, there's definitely more blood and damage back here. I have to use a lot of wood shavings, which I'm not used to using quite this many because the back of the bird is bruised. I'm not finding the tears yet. I think I'm really close to them, though. So yeah, there's some damage here. Ooh, yeah. You know what? Let me go to the undamaged side before I do much more. So actually, speaking of Connie and talking about how great she is, because it's delightful to do so, Connie Van Beek is one of those human beings who's a great example of a strange and winding path through life. Her original career before she got into fossil preparation at the Field Museum, so like one of the top institutions in the world, for which her work is now famous, blah, 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 was in sound design. And she worked in the music industry with some reasonably big names. I think she had her own studio, all sorts of stuff, and she did sound work. You know? And then she started out as a volunteer at the Field. Her massive, massive skills became evident, and eventually she was hired on. So she got to actually work on Stu the T-Rex and would be part of that whole thing, and now, all these years later, she's still at the Field. She's hard as nails, and still a humongous music fan. So if you ever want to suck up to Constance Van Beek, should this ever come up in your life, ask her about a band called Mott the Hoople. And I'm immediately curious if anybody in this chat has heard of a band called Mott the Hoople. Like, I don't have a prize, but if I had a prize, you would get a prize if you could tell me anything about that, if you knew without Googling it, anything about Mott the Hoople. But, like, and like, I literally, in order to suck up to Connie Van Beek, because I figured out early that this was a thing, I asked her about Mott the Hoople, and she literally handed me a documentary. And I ended up watching the documentary about this band. And it was, yeah. And we've been friends ever since. Meganor, you say you remember the name? You had to look him up to remember why. Does it have to do with David Bowie that you remembered? But, yeah, no, they're... Yeah. Their members of that band are still active. So Mott the Hoople, as a band, is done, and some of their members have sadly passed away. But, oh, Brian's a big Bowie fan, so it has come up. Okay. Jalapeno, hello. So yeah, Mott the Hoople. Totally a thing. Jalapeno, is this legal? Absolutely good questions. This is a robin, and so you need specific licensing in order to skin this type of bird. I have this. I have the federal salvage license, as long as the bird, when I'm done, goes to a research institution. In this case, it will be going to the Chicago Academy of Sciences. So, yes. Yes, but, I guess. And actually, I think I have something, if you hit !law, I should have an information nugget in there as well. So, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a terrible short answer that I basically just gave you, but there you go. I think I was going to have one specifically for the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. I don't remember if I actually set it up. But, yeah. So, absolutely valid question. Thank you for asking. Don't take stuff like this for granted. Yeah, I don't remember what I was gonna... Yeah. It's one of those things, I started to set up the chat commands, and I really need to, like, go back and double-check my work. So, sorry, guys. But I'm working on it. I want to have some sort of quick answer. But, yeah, I have federal licensing, which allows me to briefly possess salvaged migratory birds, which are most of them. As long as they are then, by certain dates and statutes, given to a research institution with the then additional specific federal licensing that says they're a research institute and they can accept it. And in this case, it's the Chicago Academy of Sciences. And I still don't know how this bird died. And it looks like the damage that I saw on the shoulder, this is kind of cool. Oh, hey, Not Here. I'm glad you made it. This damage on the shoulder where the skin was torn, it didn't go all the way through all the layers of skin. So the top layer of skin was abraded off, but it didn't actually break all the way through to the muscle. So, I'm less certain now. That makes me think this wasn't a cat. Cat wounds tend to be pretty obvious. Cats' teeth puncture. And so, generally speaking, if they're attacking something, they're puncturing through it. Whereas, like, a dog is crushing damage. For anybody who's ever been bitten by a cat versus a dog, you've probably experienced this. Dog wounds tend to bruise. Cat wounds bleed. You can get unlucky in both directions, but tend to. And so, with birds and small mammals that I've worked on, it's almost like surgical holes where the wounds are, and this I'm not seeing. And so I'm now moving away from my original hypothesis that this was a cat kill, and moving on to trying to figure out what it could have been. Now, I did notice the wounds on the head, so when I get up there, that might be a puncture wound. So, don't know. Just gotta keep digging. So to catch everybody up on where I'm at, because again, I've just been yapping about paleontology, because that makes sense in this context. I've got it about half skinned out. So this is the chest bone. This is like the sternum, also called the keel. This is the stump of the neck, shoulder, and then the back. And a knee has just emerged out of the skin here. So I'm kind of just moving down towards the tail. And I'm seeing a lot less damage on the torso than I was expecting. A lot of damage on that head, not a lot of damage on the torso. So that's interesting. Yeah, there's definitely something going on here. I'll get back to that. I just gotta focus. Just get the body out. As soon as you get the whole body out, like, everything becomes easier. Because it's a huge meatball that oozes. Like, I really don't want that around my nice clean feathers, and so it's better if I can just get it completely out. And some more sawdust, because, again, it's oozing. This is a juicy guy, so... And actually, I've been using he pronouns and terms like guy. I don't know this thing's sex yet. So, because it's a juvenile... especially, I won't know for sure until I'm looking at gonads, and the fact that it's a juvenile means that its gonads might not even be, like, fully formed yet. So they might be real small. So I won't know that probably until next week. Ooh, this is interesting. Looks like there's just a little wound on the thigh. That might just be something different. We'll see. Okay, so I got that knee out. So, you guys, anybody who's been on my stream before has heard this, but I have to say it because it just is one of my chips on my shoulder. Birds do not have a reverse knee. The term reverse knee is garbage, don't use it, it's wrong. They have regular knees. So, here's my little birdie foot, and then there's this joint right here, and that's what people call a reverse knee. That is an ankle. That's his ankle. His knee is right here, and it looks exactly like a knee. It functions as a knee. It's a knee. So, please, that is a garbage term. Don't use it. There's no such thing as a reverse ankle. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's another one I could make as a chat command. There could just be reverse knee. And then you guys don't have to hear me say that again. Yeah, I gotta up my chat command game, basically. There's a lot of stuff that I do find myself repeating. And I want to keep it fresh for my regulars. I don't know if you guys have any other questions or stuff that, I haven't covered before, but I know you've heard that one. if you've watched this stream at all. So I got a chip on my shoulder about that. It ticks me off. Alright, so that's one knee. Let's get the other one. So thinking back to the general feeling of the question of, is this legal? That came up at the museum. People would ask questions that are pretty direct. Did you kill it? Is this legal? Are you a bad person? I had a kid ask me if I was a bad person. And it's interesting because my favorites were like middle school kids, like tweens and teens, who would come up just all full of fire and be like, I can't believe you're doing that. You killed that beautiful animal, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm so glad you exist. Oh my gosh, please remain filled with fire. You're gonna change the world. And it was always a delight to have someone like in that age band come up and want to fight me. And because then the goal isn't to win, the goal is to make sure that you're giving them true facts. You know, this is legal, here's why I'm doing it, I feel it's a valid thing to do, blah 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 blah, while keeping that fighty spirit, because that's how you enact change, and that's how you get people who care about the environment and, you know, actually take the time and energy to go do stuff. So the last thing you ever want to do is to have some, you know, stinky 13-year-old come up to you and get all up in your face and snuff that fire out, you know? And so that was always kind of exciting when you had this, you know, tween who was just learning about conservation and wants to save the earth. And I'm like, yay! Please come be my volunteer, whatever it takes. And some of them left mad, and I mean, what are you going to do? But as long as they didn't leave beaten, that was the goal. They didn't have to agree with me. I don't need people to necessarily agree with me. And boy howdy, some of those kids did not. I'd like to think most of them eventually at least saw where I was coming from. At least heard that part. Alright, so I've got the legs loose, so now I've got the whole torso basically out. Quinn Bob eventually. Yeah, like, eventually they'll come around. Okay, so I've got exposed belly, knee. Now I'm heading down towards the tail. Yeah, there's not a ton of damage down here. So this is... I think all the damage that killed it is going to be up in the head. I still don't know what got him. Because down here it just looks like a bird. So we'll just have to see. No, okay. Yeah, I thought I saw a little bit more bruising, but no, it's actually a little bit of fat. So there, I found a tiny bit more fat on this bird. Good job, Juvenile Robin. Well, maybe I feel like I'm seeing a little bit of bruising down here. We'll see as I get a little bit farther down. Its belly is actually skinning really nicely. I've had a couple of somewhat troublesome birds lately, like that dove where the whole bottom was just a mess. The dove in question had been hit by a car, so like things were a little rough. But this one, for once, I have one that the bottom seems to be actually intact. Cool. I will take my successes. Because what I really want with a study skin is I want the whole bottom of the bird to basically be like an empty bag, where my incisions shouldn't go all the way down so it's like completely unzipped. I want there to be like a little pouch on the bottom that I can nestle the new body form into. So, and I didn't get that with the last couple birds. You know, obviously I shouldn't declare victory yet. I'm not there yet, but I'm filled with hope. Okay, cool. So I've hit my next milestone here. Big, obvious preen gland. So this white structure right here, you guys can see. So there's these are the tops of the tail, but this kind of heart-shaped thing right here, that's the preen gland. So anytime you see a bird like rubbing along its tail, or like ducks will actually kind of throw their head upside down back by their tail and they start, you know, pulling on their feathers and grooming, what they're actually doing is they have a gland on their back, right above their tail, which they can squeeze this like lotion out of. It's basically bird lotion or bird conditioner, and they squeeze little bits out, and then they work it through their feathers, and that keeps their feathers shiny. It has a certain amount of water resistance, and it just keeps everything really healthy. So it's conditioner. And that's lovely and all, but like most hand lotions, it's greasy. It has oil in it. It's a sebaceous fluid. And so I don't want this fluid in my specimen, and this part of the bird actually is going to remain in the skin. So I have to clean this out. So I'll just slice that open and then squeeze the good stuff out. There we go. So there's your bird lotion. It looks like lotion. It has the texture of lotion. It does not smell like lotion. Or at least not a lotion I would use. So yeah, there's a ton of it. It's gross. And you actually can squeeze this from the outside of the skin, but this is more thorough to slice this open and do it this way. In my very eternally humble opinion. I'm actually not humble on this. I did have a volunteer who was trained differently who came to my lab once, and I was like, nope, you gotta do it this way. Lab rule. Because the other one is bogus. There's gotta be some sort of benefit to running the lab. Alright. So now I can cut the body loose and do some trimming here. Can I get any more tissue off of this? Yeah, that's probably as good as it's going to get. I can use bigger scissors. This is a big bird. Oh. Alright. And so there we have our entire bird torso. It totally looks like a sawdust-covered little turkey, because it's a bird. And so this I'm going to keep, but I'm not going to work on the rest of tonight. So with this, it tells me how big to make my body model, so when I'm replacing it, hello Jandreloon. This is what I'm going to use to model the new body. So this is actually eventually going to be thrown out, but now I know exactly how big and what shape I need my new body form. And then next time I work on the specimen, after the skin is done, get the smoker ready. Yeah, after the skin is done, I will dissect this to try and figure out what sex the bird is, because again, I don't know that from just looking at the outside, and what it last ate. See what's hanging out in that there gizzard. But we will not be doing that tonight. Tonight, it's about getting the skin cleaned out. Okay. So now, I just want to trim all these extra mushy muscle bits off. I won't be able to get absolutely every morsel out of this, but, you know, as long as I'm not cutting through anything hard, I can kind of scrape, ooh, gross. I can kind of scrape muscle and tissue off of the bone. Okay, and I got his cloaca separate there. For anybody who's not familiar with the term cloaca, birds only have one opening at the bottom of their bodies. Mammals have, like, 2 or 3. They do everything through one opening. And it's one muscular hole that leads to all the important plumbing. And I've got that loose here. Alright, wow, yeah, there's a lot of tissue in this. I never thought, like, when I first started out learning how to skin birds, that I would love doing little birds, because they're the bane of, like, other people's existence. But doing big ones like this is a pain, whereas a lot of other people in the bird labs are like, oh yeah, big robin. And I'm like, I'll take a warbler. But, you know, it's all what you practice. But that was nice, because then, you know, like, if I had a day that I could actually just work in the lab, I would take some, you know, all the little warblers no one else wanted to do, and I would save something big like this for a trainee. And it was funny, when I originally took over my lab, so I was manager of the Beecher lab at the Chicago Academy of Sciences for 4 years. And when I was originally inventorying the fridge, it was kind of hilarious, because over the years, my predecessors had done all the birds of this size. And so you could not find a robin, a cardinal, you know, anything of that kind of really nice mid-range size like this guy is. Instead, it was all warblers, or huge birds. Great horned owl, things like that. And all the mammals were gone because mammals are easy mode. And so you could not have a squirrel for love nor money kind of thing. And now, after 4 years of me running the lab and the specimens that have rolled in that time, now that lab has medium-sized birds because I actually trained my team up to do all the little ones because we had to move through that backlog. So, yeah, I have an elite team that I trained up who are specifically good at little birds and freezer burn birds because we had all these ones that people kept not wanting to work on. So I have no idea if there's like a market for that in other places or in the earth that will be when they're hiring people in museums again. But an elite team. Very proud of those folks. All right, working on a leg. So got the big torso out. Now I got to go do all the fine detail work that I ignore on my way to get that torso out of the way. I don't think I would bother eating a robin. Going back to the joke about getting the smoker ready. It's just not a lot there. I know a fair number of people hunt woodcock, and woodcocks aren't that much bigger than a robin. Like maybe 50% bigger, which is not nothing, obviously. I have a friend who was a bird hunter. She mostly did ducks, but she would do other things, and she used a dog, and she had this whole thing. And she hated woodcocks. She couldn't understand why anybody hunted them. She said they tasted like worms because that's what they eat. And I was like, I'm not going to test that theory, but you've convinced me. That sounds really gross. So I don't know if anybody here has eaten American woodcock or snipe, but I am curious. Also, by the way, yes, snipe is a real thing. I was always led to believe that, the term snipe hunt is to chase after something that doesn't exist. But snipes are a type of bird. They're in the sandpiper family. So I don't know. I don't know where that came from. All right, I am cutting through the tendons at the base of the leg. So this is, again, the ankle. This is the knee. Oh, and drumstick. So literally, Mr. Frightful, you guys have snipe too? Yeah, I don't know why that... I guess, terms like red herring, the animals are just in terminology, but I for the years I thought snipes were like fake animals, and they're not. They're just birds. But anyway, so this is the actual part of the bird that if you're eating chicken or turkey, this is a drumstick. And so I'm just cutting the tendons at the ankle so I can get all the meat off. Meganura, you thought that too? No, they're real birds. They're really cute. They're just little sandpipery, brown speckled things. They're pretty good at hiding, which might be part of the conceit of a snipe hunt. But you can go on a snipe hunt and bring dinner home. That is a thing. Whereas, yeah, if you go on a metaphorical snipe hunt, then I guess people are laughing at you and you don't find anything. So, yeah. You can just tell people you're going on a sandpiper hunt. Woodland sandpiper. Okay, so I've got nice clean bone. And I always leave the head on the end of the bone because I don't need that hypodermic needle sharp end. So, Meganura, you said your dad definitely told you they didn't exist, and that was the point of the phrase. No, yeah, and I think I'd heard something like that. Like they're a fictitious creature. I have a memory of a cartoon or something where they like the characters were going on a snipe hunt, and the snipe was like a jackalope looking, fake animal. But no, they're just birds. They're birds that exist. You can Google it. They're perfectly normal looking sandpiperish little guys. Mr. Frightful, you said they're a small bird, and yeah, you go hunting snipe but bag everything else. Maybe that's what it is they're just really good about outwitting you, and so you're like, well, I'm just going to shoot a duck because I can see it, and then I'm going to go home with a duck. So maybe that's it. Your dad had a lot of inaccurate natural cultural history trivia on hand. Yeah, that's a thing, unfortunately. Chardon Mom, what about jackalope? I haven't done a lot of research in the southwest of the United States, but to the best of my knowledge, jackalopes are not real. Same thing with wendigos and things like that. Although wendigos are... Actually, I think Wendigos are a cultural thing, like a Native American cultural myth or legend, and jackalopes are just tourist garbage because it's funny to put tiny antelope horns on a jackrabbit. But yeah. So yeah, for all your cryptid trivia, I'm maybe not the best person, but I can tell you that snipe exist. And yeah, are apparently international. They're just a bird that exists. Who knew? The answer is plenty of people, but not me. Yeah, and American woodcocks are really, really closely related to snipe. They're basically the fatter, slightly more common version of a snipe. They're in that same family. That's the other funny ones, like sandpipers. Like, I can picture what a sandpiper is. I don't know if you guys, but it's got, little stilty legs, round body, and a real long beak. And sandpiper, they're so named because they're often little birds with high-pitched cries that run around on beaches where there's sand. There are so many species of sandpipers that do not live anywhere near a beach, and it's kind of like how the term seagull is a total misnomer. That's another one. I'm trying to train myself not to use the term seagull. They're gulls. It's a laughing gull or a ring-billed gull or whatever like that. They don't necessarily live by the sea. And so for anybody who's ever lived along the Great Lakes in the United States, you will know that there are gulls everywhere. If there's a parking lot, it's full of gulls. Like, if it's a good year for cicadas, there are gulls everywhere. They're just gulls. And they shouldn't be called seagulls. They should just be called gulls. And I just have it so thoroughly in my mind. I always say seagull. I'll be looking at Lake Michigan, and I'm like, there's a seagull. Like, no, yeah. And they'll go inland, and yeah, so that's another, like, I guess cultural one or something where I just have that term in my head, and it's not accurate. They're gulls. And if you look at any of their names, they don't say seagull. They're all just gulls. So, language and culture are weird. The short version of that. Is this a whole... What is this? I found another little spot of damage. I'm trying to figure out if I did the damage or if that's on the bird. Not a ton of info. Because there's this rough part right here, which you guys can kind of see, but... oh well. And then, let's see. Mr. Frightful, Curlew, Sanderlings, Sandpipers, and Snipe. Yeah, those are all in the same family. Quinn Bob, you said you need to remember that about gulls. All kind of inaccuracy in our culture. Yeah, no, it's and I'm terrible at this. I always see seagull, but do the best you can. They're just gulls, man. It's a tough one. Wow, so Mr. Frightful, you just had all those cool things. Yeah, the big gull families are all around landfills. Yeah, absolutely. Meganera, you said, I don't think you can win by being too prescriptive with language. If that's what people use, it's the common name. Touché. Absolutely. As Thor would say, all words are made up. There's my Avenger shout out. Yeah, and that's absolutely true. So I found that weird as a kid because I think I even asked my parents, like, if they're seagulls, why are they here in Ohio kind of thing? Why aren't they by the sea? And so I found it abrasive. It bothered me that why are there seagulls in this parking lot in Ohio? And so I still vote that we should change that particular language because it's misleading and confusing. Whereas if you just are calling something and that's just kind of the way it is, then that's a little different. Mr. Frightful, they followed a trawler, maybe. Or maybe they were just always there because the Great Lakes are big and obvious and they don't care if it's salty or not. They're going to follow the water. So that one I don't know. I don't know if gulls are present in the center of the United States because they've always been, or if they specifically were following human activity. There's somebody knows the answer to that. That person is not me. I would have to do more research. Maybe I'll do that on Tuesday. My Tuesday stream tends to be just drinking tea and looking up stuff on the internet. I need a chill day, you guys, and it's my chill day. So if you're interested in chilling out Tuesday afternoons around 1 Central Time, it's usually me and a couple mugs of tea and Googling stuff. And so I will endeavor to figure out if there's specimens that will tell you if seagulls predated human, I should say, Western expansion across the United States. Quinbom, sounds like you're every day sitting around Googling things, drinking tea. Heck yeah! And that's not a bad way to be. But maybe the spelling is off and they're supposed to be seagulls, like vision gulls. I love that. And there's a lot of instances of naming of animals, locations, things that have gone through that sort of linguistic change. Wouldn't that be funny? Because if they see your French fry, they're coming for you. If they see that bagel, they're all coming. Like, yeah, so I'm happy to adopt that. 100%. All right, while I've been prattling on about seagulls and my various opinions on that, I've got this wing out. So, shoulder, elbow, wrist. So, got this little guy going on here. Not a ton of damage. This is, which wing is this? This is the right wing. Everything seems fine in here. I didn't notice any particular issues or damage. There's no tears. So, it seems like a totally normal bird so far. Shard Mom, that's so funny. Good for you. Okay. So something that I've been doing, this is the joys, I suppose. The joys of doing this on Twitch in 2020. So I was laid off from my job. And so instead of being at the lab where it was fast-paced, the museum was open, people are asking questions, I have a dozen volunteers, things are going on, you just had to like go with what you know. Being at home, working on these specimens, I get to try new things. I get to, I'm editing my my ways of doing stuff. It's very refreshing. And one of them is, this is the forearm of this bird. And so just like your forearm, we have 2 bones in here. You have a radius and an ulna in your forearm. Birds have that too. And what I used to do is I always removed the radius and left the ulna as kind of a structural piece. It's just helpful for when you're trying to set the feathers later. But people in my lab had actually been starting to leave both bones in many specimens, usually the larger ones. And I've really determined that I actually kind of like leaving both bones in larger birds. And it still doesn't really work for me with warblers. I have a thing, I have a system with warblers. They're my specialty. But with this guy, I'm going to try and leave both bones. So right now, you can't even tell that there's 2 bones. There's just all sorts of lines. There's all these tendons. There's tendons on top of bone. It's crazy. Although, actually, this guy is really big, so you can clearly see this line of dots. This is the ulna, and those dots are where the flight feathers used to attach. So those are really big and obvious on this particular bone, so that's kind of cool. Alright, so I'm going to start just cutting through tendons and loosening this up. And of course, it's really easy to tell if you're cutting through a tendon or a bone, not necessarily by what it looks like, because they both look like silvery white structures, but, one is hard. So don't cut through the thing that fights you back. I am full of wisdom. We had a great thing going in the lab, mostly when I had an intern. And this particular intern was excellent. And among many other wonderful things that this human being did, he kept a running tally of, it was called Beecher Out of Context, because again, the lab was the Beecher lab. Beecher Out of Context, he would actually write down quotes from the lab that, given out of context, were horrifying or just very confusing. And it was like milk out your nose funny. And half of them were things I said. And it was both really flattering and really weird to see my quotes out of context. And he had a notebook he kept, and it was intense. And so when he finished his internship with flying colors and did a great job and was wonderful, he then showed us all the compiled list of Beecher Out of Context, and it was epic. And like, I don't even have any good quotes because out of context they're so weird, but basically they were the Twitch clips of IRL, and it was a beautiful thing. Alright, so now you can see these two bones. So you can see this really thin radius, and that's why I would often remove it, because it's a really, really thin bone compared to this big, beefy ulna. But I'm practicing here. I want to see if I can leave that behind more often. And part of the reason I think I was trained initially to remove those is because they break really easily. It's a really delicate little bone. So it's just as well to get rid of it, right? But I can get better. I can preserve it, right? Maybe with some practice. So trying new techniques. Another thing that I really need to start doing, and I think I'm going to start doing it on probably my Thursday tinkering streams, I need to start practicing making different sorts of body molds, or body forms. Because I have my old way of doing it, which is fine. I could do better. I just have to, like, not have a specimen. I just need to make a body form for an imaginary skin kind of thing and practice making it a good structure. So I got all sorts of wish lists for 2021, including get a paid job, but we're working on that. Okay, so I've got all the extra muscle off of here. The two bones came detached. You can see the end is, kind of open there. That's not ideal, but I think it'll still give me a good amount of structure, so, I'd give myself a B. Moving on. Tuck that back in. Alright, so this is now the side that I saw the damage, so let's go a little slower. See what there is to see in here. Yep. Well, so far, nothing of terrible interest. Cool. The muscle looks a little bruised. The color, ooh, wait. Maybe? The color's just a little darker. Like, things here seem somewhat messed up, but not like a major contusion kind of, smoking gun thing. So, yeah, the elbow just looks a little torn. Meh. Nothing interesting yet. How did this bird die? I don't know. Okay. Oh, it's coming out okay, so. Yeah, no, I'm really not seeing anything too weird. I wonder if it's just going to be head damage. Like, I guess it's possible that this is like a window kill that maybe an opportunistic critter picked up and carried a small distance and, got startled and dropped on the sidewalk. I can make up all sorts of stories for which I have really insufficient data. Which means I can talk about it on stream and I won't be writing it down on my official data sheet. Rampant speculation is fun, just don't put it in the official record. Okay, well. Yeah, there's a few areas that look a little dark, but there's not damage. Like, I'm not seeing a ton here that would tell me that there was an issue with this bird's arm. There was some damage on the back, which it's all covered in wood shavings. You guys can kind of see this area. The wood shavings are stained more. This is bloodier, so there's damage here on the back. But even that didn't actually puncture the skin, as it turns out. So it's a bruise, it's not a puncture. The wings are fine. Curiouser and curiouser. And I've had people ask if I would be able to tell if the bird died of disease. No, I wouldn't. Other people, maybe, not me. I would be able to tell if it died potentially of the results of a disease. So, like, if it died of starvation, or so it became so weak it couldn't fly or take care of itself, and so it ultimately starved to death. I would be able to look at the bird and be like, that bird starved to death. You can tell that. Or I guess if its face was so filled with snot that it couldn't breathe, I could probably be like, yep, that's all plugged up with snot. But I wouldn't be able to say, oh, that's West Nile virus. I don't have the expertise for that. That's the sort of thing that people need to like do a culture, and with potentially a veterinary background or some sort of more specific ornithology background than I have. So if this bird did succumb to some sort of disease where, I don't know, its heart exploded or just stopped beating, I wouldn't necessarily be able to tell. Someone else might, but not me. And I've had people ask, then shouldn't you have someone else work on the specimen who knows all of that stuff, or who can gather data about every single organ or whatever? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is there's just not enough time. You can either have, like, the few people who are out there spend all of their days working on specimens and be able to get that sort of really, really robust data for a tiny, tiny fraction of all the potential specimens. Or you can have someone like me who knows how to make a very good specimen but doesn't know how to gather every possible ounce of data to at least get something preserved for the next couple hundred years. And so it's a choice of what you're preserving and how you're preserving it. So like if I'm doing a study skin like this, I'm not destroying its potential for DNA analysis, but I'm not really enhancing it either. They can do DNA work on dried specimens like I do. It's just tougher. You're really hoping for a real good, like topad kind of thing. Mr. Frightful, it's the superhero dilemma. You say what you can. Yeah. And so it's just a question of keep going, keep plugging away. If you have someone who can save more data, great. They should do that. And even over the years, my lab improved. There was a fantastic human being named Anna Chin who came on board at the museum and had all this great information about how to sex the birds, how to do stomach analysis, and how to better organize our data and make it more in line with a larger number of other institutions, so it would be a more universal data set. Queen of data. She was amazing. And with being able to sex the birds, not only did she know how to do it, she could explain it in a way that we actually created step-by-step instructions and could train more people on. And so that's the key. That's the good educator, and a shout out to the teachers on the feed. I know there's at least one. Educators are able to take that sort of information and make it so more people know how to do that thing or observe that thing or whatever it is. And in this case, Anna Chin comes on board, and suddenly we were able to train a dozen people on how to gather information about the sex of these birds. Because, guys, it's hard. Birds kind of hide that stuff. And suddenly our data set improved, and it was amazing. So, like, we changed. When I came on, I could teach people how to preserve the birds. I had done sexing, but I hadn't been trained in a way that I felt like I was consistent, and I didn't want to train people badly. And so we just kind of let it drop for a while. But it was always out there. It was always, man, I hope we can learn how to do this as a lab. We just have to find the time, resources, right person. And then we did, and revolutionized the lab. And, so you do what you can with what you got, and always be ready to improve, and always be ready to change and learn. And it's so cool. It's so cool when you have a team that's just ready to jump on board. Something I just abhor is the idea or the conceit of we've always done it this way. Because, I'm like, and, sometimes you've always done something that way, whatever that thing is, because it's real good. Great. And so I need you to tell me why it's real good, and I'm still potentially going to try something else, and that will just shore up the fact that what you were doing was real good. But just the fact that you've always done it is not interesting to me. And it's always cool when you get a group of people who are open to innovation without being just innovation or die kind of thing. And yeah, that's where the magic happens. Whew. All right, good humans. Yeah, there's pretty much always room for improvement. There's something. Things change. Humans are innovative. If, materials change, techniques change, environments change, humans change, there's always a way to improve something. Even when it just comes down to the structure of the spreadsheet that you're putting your data into. Oh my god, that was so amazing when Anna changed that. Database managers. If there's any database managers on my stream right now, y'all are ace. Alright, so, onto this bird. I have now gotten all the meat out of the body, the wings, and the feet. So now what we're down to is the detail work for the head. I'm a little trepidatious here because I know that there was that wound on the one side of the back of the head. And so what I have to do is be able to skin the head without stressing the wound, because it could just unzip. You know, so, you know, if you've got a hole this big but you tug on it, suddenly you have a hole this big, and that's what I'm trying to avoid here. So I don't know if you guys noticed, I was re-wetting the skin. I want to make sure it's nice and soft and elastic. That'll help with this whole set. So what I'm holding right here, beak, and then back top of the head, back of the head, stump of the neck. And so this next step is just, you know, I'm skinning up towards the ears, basically. So here we go. This is a step where working on a nice fresh specimen and not one that's heinously freezer burned is just a joy. Skinning freezer burned birds' heads is not fun. It's doable. You can succeed at it. Whew. That was not my favorite. Okay, there's some damage on the neck, but not anything super bad. So, I don't know if you guys can see... There's a bump right here that's asymmetrical to the rest of it. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but this is an asymmetrical bump. That's the part I got to be really careful. Meganura, head time. You're going to turn the volume down and go make tea. Yep, that's fair. So, Meganura is warning everybody. Thank you for the service. Heads are gross, y'all. We as humans care about faces and heads more than we do a lot about the other stuff. So if you've been okay up to this point, then I encourage you to continue watching. But if you're dicey and not sure, you might want to try either muting or getting rid of the visuals, but keeping one or the other, whatever your preference. Heads are weird. So, alright. What do we got so far? I would say the worst part is probably either digging the eyeballs out or cutting the brain out. Meganura, you said apparently Twitch stops counting you if you mute. So if you want to dip out here, leave the volume on super low. Oh, interesting. Okay. I'll try not to shout excitedly about disgusting things. Okay, so that lump moved. There's not a hole. I can still see that lump. It's under the skin right there. But it didn't actually... It's not a puncture wound. Okay, then this is officially not a cat kill. There's bruising. There's a little bit of blood in places I wouldn't expect, but it's not super bad. What is up with this bird? I have no idea what killed this bird. This is really strange. Alright, let's get an ear out. Let's see if there's blood in its ears. So I actually pull the ears inside out, because if you think about your own head, your skin goes, you know, from your cheek into your ear hole, and so I'm actually pulling that whole tube of skin out. Oh, Mr. Frightful, or you could use the mute on the tab of the browser rather than the control on the player. Yeah, that seems like a good way to do that, too. Quinn Bob, you said you may have mentioned it before, but do you know how old the bird was? I do not. Given its plumage... and actually, okay, no, I'm going to say I sort of do. There we go. There's two ways to tell birds' ages. The state of their feathers, if they have downy baby feathers, or if they have juvenile plumage, which is a species-specific thing. Or in the case of passerines, and passerines are a huge number of birds, they're just little perching birds, basically. If their skull isn't completely ossified. This one is not. So I know that this bird... so this is a robin, and this is juvenile robin plumage. So instead of having the rusty red breast of an American robin, it has these speckles. So that's juvenile plumage. And now that I'm in here, the skull is wow, absolutely 0% ossified. Okay, and what that means, ossification's cool. So birds, again, are absolute professionals at efficiency. Everything about these little perching birds who have those horrible little naked nestlings, any of the species that have horrible little naked nestlings, their goal is to have their babies go from egg and horrible little nestling to being able to fly in the shortest amount of time. And so they cut corners to do this. And one of the things that birds do is when baby little passerines are born, so in this case a robin, there's one thin layer of bone around for its skull, protecting its brain. I wonder if I can... Yeah, like I can mush this with my fingernail. It's that soft. It feels like a ping pong ball. You know how you can like you can squish a ping pong ball and it kind of pops back into shape, or you can kind of bend it with your thumbnail. That's exactly what this bone feels like. It feels like a ping pong ball. And over the first year of the bird's life, after it's successfully learned how to fly and it's living on its own, then it's eating food and it can take the time and resources to build a second layer of bone. And so it basically pulls the layers apart, and in between those two layers, there's little stilts of bone, and it kind of looks like corrugated cardboard from the side. And then they have a nice strong skull that'll protect their brain for the rest of their life. But that first year, their head is very, very soft. It has not... An ossified... Ossa is the root for bone, like osteoporosis is a bone disease. Or osteology is the study of bones, and so ossification is growing bone. And it's not fully ossified. It hasn't fully grown its bone. So that was a really long answer. I hope that answered your question. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I do go on. All right, let's get this ear out. I was busy gesturing instead of... Okay, thank you. Instead of pulling this ear out. That is the funny thing about doing taxidermy, is I am somebody who tends to gesture when I talk. And I think it's useful, actually, for being able to use hand gestures to explain things, but it does rather slow down doing my work. And I would do it at the desk, too. Absolutely. All right. Oh, that ear came out fantastically. All right, little birdie ear. So there, you can see. So this is the bird's ear, totally pulled out of its head. So that's, again, that tube of skin that if you're looking into a human's ear, you can see the skin goes into their head. Birds have that. Also, birds have ears. For anybody who wasn't sure of that, birds don't have external ears. They don't have, the fleshy bit that we have. Most of them don't. Some of them do. Some owls. But there's a hole there. And yes, because obviously they sing, so they have to be able to get that, other bird songs into their brain somehow. So they do have ears. I have met people who actually were surprised by that fact. So, which is fair, Alright, so I got that ear out. Let's get the other one. But yes, there are owls that have fleshy external ear parts. And you can't tell because their heads are so dang fluffy, but when you're actually messing around in there, you're like, oh, little tiny owl ear. It's very funny. And with a great horned owl, if you're looking into their ear, like if you have this, you actually move the feathers aside so you can see into their ear, you can see the back of their eyeball, which is also weird. And that's like for a living owl, you can see the back of their eyeball. Anyway, okay, so that other ear came out real nice. Great. On to the eyeballs. There's no blood in the ears that I can see. And I'm not seeing any head trauma. Maybe there's a little bit here. I don't know. Yeah, you can see it a little bit. There's like a bubble. That's weird. And there's a bubble back here. And it just looks a little dark, but none of that screams concussion. Concussions are usually unsubtle. I do not know what killed this bird. I really thought by now I would have like a smoking gun, like a big gash or things like that. And all of the injuries I found are really superficial. So that is not what I was expecting. And that's why you guys saw me writing notes at the very beginning. I write notes on my observations, not on my speculations. And so at the beginning, I did find that weird bump on the top of the, or kind of back of the head, and some skin abrasions on one of the shoulders, and I recorded that. But I didn't say, oh, cat attack, or whatever like that, because that was speculative. I said it out loud to y'all, but on my actual data, I restrict it to only absolute observable fact. And I keep the speculation to myself until I have additional observable fact. Okay, right now I'm cutting the eyelid loose. So you can kind of see here, there's a whiter bubble area here. That's literally, I'm pulling the skin away, and, the eyelid is open, and so air is coming in through the eye and forming a bubble. And so I know I can just cut there, like so, and it just opens up to be the eyeball. Oh, and great news, its eyes are not full of maggots. Hashtag last stream. Ooh, that's a molted feather. Cool. Okay, so this bird does have body molt. I hadn't specifically noticed anything yet. Let me change my zoom so you guys can see this, because for anybody who hasn't seen molt, I always find this particularly neat. Configure video. Doing this with my left hand is hard. Left hand. That's actually too zoomed in. Doing this with my left hand is hard. There you go. So you guys can see the feather shaft there. There's like a little plastic looking cap on the end of the feather, and you can see that the fuzzy parts of the feather are kind of like sprouting out of it. It's almost like paper wrapped at the bottom of a bouquet of flowers or something. That's the feather sheath that the new feather sprouted out of. So when feathers first grow out of a bird's skin, they look like little needles, or like like pine needles. And the feather breaks out of it starting from the tip, and then it kind of unzips all the way down. And so these little plastic-looking caps, it's not plastic, it's more like, it's like chitinous, so it's almost like fingernail bits. So that's evidence of molt. So that's nice. Alright, then I will get this out of nausea headache mode. Alright, and we're back in focus. So actually I'm going to take a minute and update some of these. So molt, body molt, Raihan. Anyway, hi. Okay, so molt, some body molt. And then for ossification, 0%. Oh, and then fat. I did see fat along the tail. Okay, so yeah. Let's get that updated. Alright. Back to the head. Let's get this eyeball the rest of the way out before I digress further with other things. You can see its little eyelashes coming out. And yes, birds have eyelashes. Raihan, you said humans have that on their hair as well, right? I don't think it's exactly the same structure. The plastic-looking thing. Yes, like, so, when you're... I've seen this on people's beards. Sometimes there's like a tube on the bottom of the hair. But it's... I don't know if the formation's the same. So this is one where I'm not knowledgeable enough to truly answer that question, because I don't know a lot about human hair or mammal hair. So if anybody gets a better answer to that, I'm curious. Because on feathers, it's called a feather sheath. I don't know if there's a more specific scientific term for that substance. But you fill me with curiosity, so that's something I'm going to try looking up later. But, yeah. So yeah, I know the stuff you're talking about. I don't know how similar or different it is the totally useless but truthful answer. On birds, it's so cool though. Like you guys have probably heard the term pin feathers. Like cartoon characters like to use it as a, you know, unhappy term. But pin feathers on birds frickin' look like pins. They're really funny. There's also a term blood feathers. Blood feathers and pin feathers are basically the same thing. When a bird's feather starts growing and it's in that complete sheath, it has a big blood supply at the base, and it actually has blood flowing through it as it's growing the new feather. And so if it breaks, either at the base or even halfway, it just starts fountaining blood, and it looks really horrible. Veterinarians usually have to be involved to fix it. It's a big unfortunate bother. Those are usually like flight feathers, like big wing feathers or big tail feathers. It's not really going to be a body feather that does that, but to build those really humongous flight feathers actually takes a blood flow through that area, and so if they break a feather, it's a trip to the vet, and it's very painful for the bird. It's fixable. You can deal with it. It's just a pain in the butt, and you can actually do it from home if you have tweezers and styptic powder, and you know. So if you have a bird or thinking of getting a bird, look up how to do that. I had a cockatiel for a while. Her name was Becky, and I loved her. She eventually died of old age-related illnesses, which was super sad, but I was kind of proud. So, good little bird. Alright, so I got that eyeball out. So you can see he's now, you know, here's the actual eyelid with some of his eyelashes sticking through, and then there's the exposed eyeball. So I'm going to get this one exposed before I start popping him out of the skull. Go. Get that eyelid loose. So this bird doesn't have one that's significant enough to be a problem, but one of the things I find vaguely annoying when I'm working on birds of prey is they have a nictating membrane. It's also known as a third eyelid, if you've ever seen information about that. But they basically have a protective third eyelid that they can blink to cover their eyes so they don't lose all vision. And so it's a protective see-through eyelid, so they can still see light and shapes, they just lose the ability to see really distinct stuff. And so like if a bird of prey is, you know, inserting its face towards something, it might want that protective layer so it shoots up that eyelid. Skinning around those is just annoying. And the worst is if you leave it in place and then you're trying to like reset the skin and you have this big nasty like opaque skin thing keeps, yeah. Nictating membranes, they're really useful for the living animal, and I find them super annoying from my point of view. And actually, speaking of scientific facts that are a little bit outside my purview, so I probably shouldn't even say them out loud. My understanding is the little pink dot in the corner of our eyes by the bridge of your nose is the membrane that could have been our nictating membrane, but is now just this little remnant blobule. Or rather, everybody had that and birds turned it into this other thing. I'm not sure which direction that evolution goes. Don't quote me on that, guys. I don't remember. I cannot cite my sources on that, but I feel like I heard that somewhere and it's cool and I should look it up. So, but I cannot cite my sources. That was something that we had to be really careful about when we were at the lab, because, again, the lab was open to visitors at the museum. So people are walking by, they can chat with us while we're in the lab, we're on the floor of a museum, there's taxidermy around, and it's all very official. And so you can't just go spouting off things you sort of know or you heard once. Kind of like we were talking about with the snipe hunt. Like, if your parents told you something when you were a kid, that's not citable. Your parents are great. They're, you know, good job, they raised you. But unless they're an ornithologist, if they're giving you bird facts, you should probably double check it. And we had a couple people who messed up by saying things that their parents had always taught them that we're like, no, that's absolutely not the truth. You know, so P.S. if you see a baby bird that's fallen out of its nest, pick up the baby bird and put it back in its nest. It won't smell like human, and its parents will never love it. Don't just put it back, and its parents will start taking care of it again. Like, things like that, you know. But you learn these things, and you learned it when you were young, so it ingrains itself in your care, which is good. That's what your young brain is for gathering information and storing it and, you know, helping you live. But especially if you're in a situation where your people are going to believe you because you are a scientist at a museum, you know, just be careful what you say on the fly. And so I think it's okay to trust my audience to say things like, I cannot cite my sources and I'm not sure about this, and you guys understand me. But if people disagree, I'm interested in that. Maybe I should just stick to things I only absolutely can cite. Okay, so I have my eyeball loose, so that's really gross. So what I've done is I've reached my tweezers in here, I've grabbed the optic nerve, so I just get to give that guy a twist. It's kind of like pulling off an apple stem. Give it a good twist, and then pull that out. So there's our eyeball. And bird eyeballs, for anybody who's not gotten to see this before, that center bit, that darker center bit, is the part you would see in the living bird. And actually, if I hold it, you can kind of see it's domed. You know, it's kind of like a little flying saucer. So that's the only part that's visible. All this gray around it is part of the eyeball, but that's all behind the skin of the face. And so they actually don't have eyeballs. We do. Our eyes are jelly balls. They're, you know, a whitish, weird, mostly roundish thingy attached to a nerve that goes to our brain. Theirs is, like, if I release my tension, you can see that center part just falls in there. Theirs is like a flying saucer shaped, and that center ring, let me change my focus again. There we go. So here's this disgusting close-up eyeball. So if I squeeze it, there's the part that you would see if the bird was alive, and I let that go and it sinks back down. And that ring that defines that edge is actually made of bone. There is a ring of bone inside the bird's eyeball called a sclerotic ring. It's not attached to any other bones. So it's not like the knee bone's attached to the leg bone, is attached to the hip bone, whatever like that. It's just a floating ring of bone inside their eye. So again, bloop. And the funny thing with sclerotic rings is people are like, oh, birds are weird. No, actually, we're weird. Mammals and crocodilians are the only vertebrates that don't have sclerotic rings. Everybody else does. So, reptiles, fish, they all have sclerotic rings, but crocodiles and alligators and caimans and us and, you know, mammals don't. So, sclerotic rings. They're weird, and we are weird, and eyeballs are weird. Okay, so I got that one out. Let's get this other one out. I'm also trying not to actually puncture the eye. It is, in fact, full of disgusting eye juice, which is kind of gray and gets on everything. So I do my best not to poke holes in it. I fail sometimes. But I'm okay. For the most part, I don't puncture the eyes, but stuff happens. The other thing was when I'm pulling it out, when I'm squeezing that optic nerve, I have to make sure I squeeze the nerve tight enough that I'm just Mr. Frightful. Yeah, right? That I have to squeeze it tight enough that when I'm pulling, I'm not putting additional pressure on that bag of fluid, or else it's kind of like a Go-Gurt where you just squeeze all the fluid out in one big swoop. And man, I've gotten some arc on eyeball fluid, and I don't really need that on my webcam, so, or my desk, or all the games and things I have on the shelf next to me. Alright, so there's my other eyeball. So bird eyeballs are out. Re-wet this. Yeah, I'm not seeing any really obvious damage in the head. I was expecting a puncture wound, or at least like a concussion or something, and I got nothing here. Weird. Okay. Meh. So much for CSI Bird Edition. Alrighty. Meganura, I'm cutting through the back of the head now, so if you were about to come back, don't. For everybody else, I'm cutting through the back of the head. Hey! Get ready. So my goal here is I want to leave these eye orbits in place, and I want to leave the front of the skull in place because it's holding the beak on. I can't take the entire skull out because the beak sticks out through the skin, so I'd have just like a hole where the beak is, which would be super not useful. And so I have to cut the back of the head out so I can get the brains out, and all the extra muscle and things like that, so I can have a nice dry frame of bone. So to do that, I basically jam my scissors right along the inside of the jaw and up through the eye orbit, and I'm going to cut from behind the hinge of the jaw. And this is the part that Mega Neuro wants to avoid, but I'm going to do it for you guys. There you go. Who doesn't need a little bone cracking in their day? And let's do that again on this side, and this time you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, a nice little window there. Where's my smaller scissors? Alrighty. And I'm basically cutting all of the support structures out of here that I can find. And then I just crack that bad boy back. And let's see. Oh, the palette does not want to come out. I had a feeling it was not coming free. There we go. Alright. So, if that won't give you nightmares, I don't know what will. So that's the inside of the bird's mouth. This is its tongue down here, and this is basically the entire palate. It actually came out a little more clean than I was expecting. Cool. So that's the whole inside of the bird's upper jaw. That's the tongue. The lower jaw is mostly still there, so I didn't screw with the bottom mandible. I cut that loose so it would stay behind. And then there's a bunch of brains. And, yeah, no, that's, like, super gross. Yeah, so set that aside for the moment. That's actually one of the better complete back of the heads I've gotten out recently, and I'm super proud. I don't know if any of my lab people are on right now, but they would understand. It's really nice when you get that out in one big piece. Alright, get the brains out of here. Nope. Visitors to the lab were often disappointed at how not cool bird brains look. They just kind of look like strawberry yogurt. Sorry. Everybody's imagining like these perfect little gray zombie brains, and it just looks like strawberry yogurt. So, sorry everybody. Bird brains are lame. Okay, so now I'm just going to do a little bit of trimming. I want to get the cutting done for when Mega Neuro comes back with her tea. Doing this sort of work is really funny because everybody's got different things they find gross, including the people who do the work. Like one of my best lab people can't stand brains, you know, and her work was amazing. But brains are, like, legit gross, or various other things. I really don't like the smell of their stomachs. It's really bad. So, you know, it's fine. You don't have to like the whole thing. Ooh, although that was an interesting emotional development thing. Kids would often ask us if we were scared working with these specimens. And that was a hard question to answer because they didn't have a better, more nuanced way to describe the discomfort of working with the stuff, because of course we're not scared, it's dead. What's going to possibly do? But it's gross, and I don't want to drop it, and I want to do a good job, and it's, you know, it reminds you of mortality, and, you know, whatever. There are lots of feelings and emotions to this sort of work, but of course I'm not scared, and it was interesting to try and answer those kids, to try and find an emotional term that they were able to identify with or understand. And yeah, because we don't really have a lot of good emotional language, especially, I don't know. And so yeah, no, I'm not scared. but I have feelings about it. I don't know. It was interesting. And kids would often also ask us, is it real? And there's a difficult thing where, especially younger people, reality is to be alive. And if you're not alive, you aren't real. You're like a stuffed toy or something. And like, no, it's real. It's also dead. You know, and it was an interesting conversation to have. Quinn Bob, you said emotional language and understanding is something I find we really need to start teaching in school. Absolutely. Mental health language, emotional health language, just emotional descriptions. And like the is it dead? Like, or is it real? Yeah, and the way we would answer that question, if someone asked, is it real? Yes, this is a real dead bird. Or yes, it is real and it's dead. Or, you know, we'd one breath to try and start bringing those concepts together. And if someone asked, are you sad? That one was easier, you know, because, yes, I am sad the bird is dead. Absolutely. It is sad that this, like in this particular case, that this bird didn't make it past its first summer. And that's sad. Absolutely. Am I going to sit in a corner and cry about it? No. So I'm not like capital S sad, but like, where do you go? So it was interesting. We had a lot of time trying to talk about our feelings with school kids and whomever, to find a common language, because a lot of these kids didn't have the emotional, you know, terminology to talk about it. It was fascinating stuff. It's that classic thing where a lot of science is just people, you know, doing stuff with or for people. And how do you convey this sort of information sitting at a desk with a dead bird in front of you? I think we did okay. I was really proud of my team. I'm just trying to get all the little bibs and bobs. Meganer, if you're thinking of coming back, the cutting, crunching noises are over. Though I do have an inside-out head here. But even that, I think I'm done. So, okay, there, you're right. Yeah, so the crunching's over. I just have the nice clean skull. So for everybody, you can see I've made this frame, basically. It looks like a mask. So the bird is looking at its own face. So, you know, here's the skin of the head. And then I've got the structure that'll give my skull its original shape without having a lot of moisture or things that might rot. Meganura, you said you've been so chatty today. I've been popping the volume back up to hear you talk. Yeah, no, I'm on fire. I'm still off screen, legit. I'll let you know when I've got the head back in. And for anybody else who might be listening but not, yeah, no, I'm super chatty today. Hero. I try, man. I want to be respectful of the different ways people have of engaging with this. It's a weird topic, you know? That's okay. So this is clearly not related because it is 8 o'clock at night, but I had coffee for the first time today in 4 months, maybe? It's been a minute. And I went into that carefully. And so when my spouse was like, so, I'm making coffee, do you want any? I said, yeah. I want like a third of the smallest cup we own. And so I had maybe 3 tablespoons of coffee. Like, maybe. And I had that at 10:30 in the morning, 11 o'clock-ish. So I doubt that's why I'm chatty right now. But I'm going to giggle and pretend that that's why. Hashtag not science. Okay, Meganura, the bird is correct side out. So for anybody else who is trying to avoid stuff, it is no longer gross. Caffeine is a heck of a drug. Yeah, no, this year, you know, I'm stuck at home. The only things you can control is yourself, blah, 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 blah. And so I completely kicked the caffeine habit. I basically, I was slowing down. I was already getting out of a lot of the caffeine-related things I had when I was doing a regular work day. And then after I was laid off, I was, I was like, no, I'm already anxious enough. I don't need to make this worse. What do I need? What do I need a ton of caffeinated energy for? I know. And so I cold turkeyed caffeine entirely for, call it a month and a half. I think I went a full month and a half without any caffeine other than chocolate. There's some caffeine in chocolate. And then I started back real slowly with like green tea, and then it's been black tea, and then it's been black tea not just as early as possible in the morning, and today was the first day I went back and had some coffee. So I don't feel any reason to like revive the coffee habit. I don't need that. But it's like real tasty, so I want to be able to have it if I want it. So, yeah, but that was when you can't control the world, you can control yourself. And it was just one of those things I felt like doing. Okay, so I have the empty skin here, and I'm still trying to figure out what this blob is on the back of the bird's head. I don't want to stress it. I don't want to ruin it. I'm so curious. Here, hold on. Let me grab my magnifiers. I don't know if anybody's seen me wear these yet. I love them. I hope you guys are ready. These are the absolute, unquestioning most mad scientist thing I own. Did I find punctures, crushes on the skull? No, the skull was immaculate, and it's a non-ossified skull, so it would have been soft. It would have any damage would have shown up. So, yeah. No, the bird's a mystery. Okay, are you ready for these visors? For anybody who's never seen these, this looks so fake, and they're so great. So, this is my visor set. So, let's see. Oh, there's something in here. But yeah, like Shard and Mom, if you're listening and you haven't seen these yet, you need to pop back on. You'll giggle yourself into fits, or not here. I don't know if you guys are still on. Forget did I get the light to work? Yes, I did. All right, light. Yeah, not here. Like it's got a light, and it's got an extra magnifier. This is the most redonkulous, fake sci-fi looking equipment, except it's real. And this is something that we had a couple of different ones in the lab, and I loved them. So, all right, let's. What on earth is this shmoo? Are these fly eggs? Okay, this is a cluster of fly eggs. Gross. Okay, that's weird. So, the bump on the back of the head, which I thought was a wound, this implies that there's some sort of abrasion to the tissue, but it didn't go all the way through to the other side. It's like a bad zit. What's going on here? Yeah, it's like an abscess. Yeah, that's a nasty, pussy old abscess. Alrighty, well, I'm not going to dig into that anymore. Gross. Yeah, so what I'm seeing here is an obvious abscess with fly eggs, not fly larvae. There's no blood, it's pus. Well, this is like 70 times grosser than I was anticipating finding. What's up here? That is additional fly eggs. Well, that was nastier than I was anticipating. I think I'm going to remove them. I don't really need fly eggs on here. Here, actually, isn't this the best? Chardon Mom, they look great. I need a photo of me wearing. You need a photo of me wearing these. I mean, maybe this should be one of my new splash icons or something like that. Like, right now, everybody wants one, right? Sorry if you've already done your Christmas shopping. There it is. Meganura, yeah. Could it have died of infection? Maybe, but I'm not seeing like. There's no smell, so it's not such a bad infection that there's that rotting tissue smell. There's no gangrenous look, so there's not the black edges, there's not green striations under the skin or the black, flow. I don't know if anybody's ever gotten a really bad injury. They tell you if you see black lines heading towards your heart, that's when you go to the doctor because you have sepsis. P.S. I hope that never happens to you. So no, I wouldn't. I basically, I don't know, is the short answer. The longer answer is that doesn't indicate to me that was the cause of death. So that's weird. Mega Orca, you said a smart fly wouldn't get its baby's host infected, right? Maggots are used to clean wounds. Depends on the species of fly. So flies are not, don't give them too much credit. So what you will see sometimes is a animal that's in distress. Something else is wrong. Let's say it has a malformed heart, and it's not going to be a strong flyer, and the malformed heart means it's not properly distributing oxygen to its body and having a hard time. An animal like that will start to have other problems. You'll notice that they're covered in parasites, because they don't have the energy to properly groom and pick off the parasites, and so they'll just be covered in parasites. So what is it that killed them at the end? Is it the heart condition, or is it the fact that they died of iron deficiency from having so many parasites on themselves? There's a weird chicken and egg process that you have to be able to figure out, and so maggots will sometimes appear on an animal that is dying because it can't fight off, so it will have an open wound. Maggots will be in it. It's really gross when you see that, by the way. I've had to deal with that with cats. They'll because the lifespan of your average housefly maggot is real short, so it might be able to live in a festering wound for a couple of days and then drop off and pupate and become a fly and not really give a crap if the animal lives or not. So they don't have a long enough duration that they care about what the host is doing. They just need to make sure that they'll succeed. And these would have succeeded if this hadn't been picked up by someone and used for scientific purposes. Fly strike, yeah, that's the term. Fly strike is horrible. Maggot or two will clean a wound, hundreds will create problems. And it's because of their festering like feces and stuff. So one or two will actually clean it up, but if you have hundreds, not only are they potentially damaging the tissue, but they're pooping and they're living in it and they're pupating and they're doing horrible things. Yeah, fly strike can be really, really bad. And the smell, like, that's the thing that's getting me with this, is there's nothing about this bird that's smelling like putrid. It doesn't smell like there's a horrible infection. So even though the back of his head has this pussy abscess with fly eggs... Oh yeah, I was going to try and zoom in so you guys can see this. Haha, because I love you all. And then don't you want to see this? There it is. Boom, there's a big old fly egg right on the top there. So you can see that kind of cylindrical clear thing sticking up. That's a fly egg. And just the tissue around it. Let me move this aside. This chunko here, let me find that focal distance. Like this whitish bit here is like the open side of an abscess. Yeah, no, it's not here. You're absolutely correct. It's gross. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know if it had a minor wound that had started to kind of get better but then was being held open by flies. I don't feel like that would have been enough to kill it. But it could be a sign that it was under distress in other ways. So yeah, that's nasty. No, we've hit nasty. That's nasty. there's nothing. Let me go back to that original shoulder thing that I saw. How does that look now when I see it from here? You know what? I think I was incorrect when I first thought I saw a tear to the skin over here. I think that the skin was just puckered a little bit, because now that's just clean and perfect. I just don't see anything that obviously killed this bird. Wait, what's this? Okay, there's fly eggs along its back. Oh, grody. Okay. Okay, here's the thing I originally found. This is... oh, I changed the thing. There's more fly eggs embedded in the feathers along the back. This is gross. I'm going back in. Let's see. Ah, I lost my spot. Hold on. Yeah, those are definitely more fly eggs. What are you guys doing back here? Okay, so this is weird. Usually I'm gonna see fly eggs like this if there's an obvious wound, right? They eat body fluids. And I'm not seeing that. They're just like on its skin. Huh. Didn't you find ants and bugs on it too? I did find ants. Yeah, there was a handful of ants. But they weren't weird. They were on the way that I normally see it. Is it possible they just picked them up lying around dead in August? I mean, yes. Short answer is yes. Longer answer is, generally speaking, you're going to see early stage decomposers like flesh flies on open wounds or openings to the body. And so on a dead body, they'll be in the mouth, nose, eyes, ears, and anus. Because they're just open, they're wet openings to the body. They can get a start in there. You're not going to see it just on flat tissue, generally speaking. And so this is weird to me. Like, I have an entomologist I might bother about this. And I don't think they're maggots. I'm pretty sure these are still eggs. But yeah, they're all clumped up here in the, what are you guys wrapped around? Is this another abscess? There's a billion of them back here. Oh, yeah, this is my pointy toe and everything. Weird. Come on, kids, get out of the way. I'm basically trying to break up the clump of maggots to see what they're on. You know, is it another abscess? Is it a wound? Is it, you know, unfortunate dog poop that got caught in the feathers? This is so gross. Guys, this is so gross. So I've gotten the clump kind of loose. I didn't see anything from the other side, right? Yeah, the inside of the skin is just flawless. There is nothing about this bird skin that would tell me that there should be a problem, except for the fact it's coated in fly eggs in a weird spot. What are you guys attached to? I'm gonna start just trying to remove these kids and see if I can see more that's underneath them. Yeah, like, so I'm gonna say, for lack of a better answer, then it must have just picked them up lying there dead. That you know, because I don't know why these flies would have been able to get there. Now, it's possible, here's the other option, is that I don't know exactly what I'm looking at. So these are insect eggs that I'm absolutely confident on. But are they a different insect? Is it like a what do you call the parasitic flies? They have a specific name. I'm blanking on it. But there's bird parasite flies that live between the layers of their feathers. I didn't think they laid their eggs on the birds, but maybe they do. So maybe this is a different type of fly. And so they're not flesh fly eggs. They could be eggs of a different insect. And so these could be a more standard, gross, ectoparasite. Ectoparasite is external, as opposed to intestinal worms or something. But fleas and ticks. Yeah, because these are embedded at the base of the feathers, up against the skin, in a place that's dry and healthy, as far as I can tell. And so I think what I was seeing before that I took to be like a wound or a hole in the skin was actually those feathers being pulled and clumped funny by these little guys. And I was incorrect in my initial observation. I'm really glad I went back and looked when that didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, now I'm just pulling eggs out of here. Yeah, there's a lot of them. And the head definitely seemed to have, like, skin hanging off. There seemed to be other structures. I'm not seeing that here. I'm just seeing eggs. Well, that got weird. Yeah, I'm gonna bug I'm gonna bug an entomologist about this. Because this is a dissatisfying and strange thing for me. And this is clearly outside of anything I've worked with before, and I want to know more. So that's strange. Huh. Okay, well, I've reduced the size of the clump, but I haven't seen any other structures or anything. No, lice look different. And are much smaller. Ugh. Bird lice are smaller. I actually don't know what their eggs look like per se, but their lice eggs are usually round. Flags are usually long. But I don't know all the species, but so I say usually. Well, that got weird. Okay. So I need to update my data because my initial observation upon closer inspection needs an update. So I had said wounds on the right side of the skull and left side of the shoulder, skin torn. And so here's an important one. It's usually a bad idea. There's some debate on this, but usually you don't want to cross out or remove your previous observations because they were legit in the moment. Instead, you update them. And so in this case, I have, wounds on the right and back side of the skull, left shoulder, skin torn. Now I'm going to update that, and I'm going to say, correction. Upon closer magnification, skin intact, fly eggs present in those areas. Possible abscess on skull. No wound seen on shoulder. Eggs concentrated in feather track. That is so weird. Okay. So, yeah, so here we have a mystery. So I don't have the information. I don't know a ton about bird parasites. And I don't know exactly where the decomposers would fall for this. Now, it is possible, going back to the idea that maybe they're flesh flies, that some real dumb fly was like, well, I'll put the kids here and they'll figure it out. So maybe. But Meganura, you said, but there had been a hole in the shoulder initially, right? I was seeing muscle, but I think what I was actually seeing was the skin was folded or moved, and it made it look like there was an edge. But no, I went back and looked, there is no hole. So my initial, what I thought was an edge, like a torn edge, I think was actually bunched up skin. So yeah, my initial observation was incorrect. Yeah, no, this is weird. The bird is in fantastic shape. Like, I got a really, really good study specimen out of this. It just came through really lovely. Everything seems healthy. It doesn't smell. There's not the usual indicators that this is a really unhealthy animal that I would note. And I've seen these things. They're gross. Just like if you're feeling unhealthy, things you might have, runny eyes or nose, gunk in your throat, diarrhea, pale skin, these are things that we experience, flaky skin, stuff like that. You'll see that in animals. You'll be like, okay, this one's unhealthy. Its skin is flaking off and its butt's covered in poo or whatever like that. Nothing. The only things that are weird about this bird are the smattering of like some sort of tar or other substance across the wings and those bugs. And so here's a new hypothesis that I don't have a ton of information about. What if it died or was sickened by like tar fumes, like someone was redoing the roof or the local road or things like that, and that was enough to conk out the bird or make it ill enough for long enough that maybe bugs started moving in and then eventually succumbed to whatever had weakened it. Maybe, I don't know. So this is one where I've just got tons of notes. And the things that will remain on the bird, I'm not going to clean off every fly egg, so if someone wants to go digging later, they can. They'll find them. They're not hard to find. And they'll be able to see the splatter marks, although they will be on the inside of the wing. And so if someone really wants to learn more and they have the equipment or knowledge to be able to do that, they'll have the specimen, and all of this stuff is on the outside of the bird. And then when I do the body analysis, maybe I'll find something additional in there. So, Mr. Frightful, you said, what if it was sickened by fumes from a chimney where it was smoking itself to remove lice? It's August, so that's less likely just for the time of year. And again, there's no smell. There's no chemical smell on the bird. There's not... If it had that much of a chemical to it, I would probably notice it. Now, obviously, if it's something like carbon monoxide, I wouldn't. But if it's smoke, I would notice that. I've definitely had animals that smelled like the human environment that they were in. So, of course, that's not conclusive, but that's another indicator that it's less likely. Fascinating. Well, okay, well, okay, so it's 8:30 my time. Sometimes I go as late as 9 or a little bit later. And again, this bird was actually in such great shape that I was able to skin it pretty fast, all things considered. But I don't think I'm going to try stuffing it today. I would rather start fresh next week and do the full model and stuffing it and doing the gut analysis next week. So I'm gonna get this guy prepped to go into the freezer, and let's start afresh next week. And then in the meantime, I got some research to do. I'm gonna contact the entomologist friend that I have to see if he has any idea about finding lice or finding eggs in a strange place. You know, maybe it is lice, and if I'm wrong, I'll tell you. Check my Discord. For anybody who's not on the Discord, I will put information about this as I learn it on my Discord. But I'm gonna try and find out more information. See if I can add to this, because my understanding of like flesh flies is they wouldn't do this. Maybe it's a different type of fly that I don't know. Oh, hey, thank you for using that. Yeah, chat element, we do know. And hypothetically that link worked. I had one go bad on me the other day and I updated it, so hopefully that works for anybody who's not on it. But yeah, this is enough of a mystery that I don't want to continue right now. I want to do a little bit more work, see what I can find out, and then next week I will stuff it. So, okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I swear, Discord does this annoying thing where it's like, when do you want the link to expire? And I'm like, oh, never, thank you very much. And then it's like, great, it's expired. And I'm like, wait, no! Never, not a little while, never. Come on, man. Discord, it is good, but it is not without its troubles. So, okay, so I just put a little wet paper towel inside the body here. I'm going to put his head in there and wrap him up tight. And put him in this cleaner bag. Yeah. Oh, hey! There's my original data. Dang it. I knew I had it somewhere. It was in the... See how the bag has like a white label? It was behind it, and I didn't notice it. Well, anyway, there's its data. So I do have the data for my scan, and I feel better about that. Okay, so I have my little bird burrito. Get him in here. Yeah, what a weird bird, you guys. I was not anticipating like any of that. so okie dokie. Okay, so I have my original data from the collector, and then I have my notes. These are gonna stay outside of the bag, but they're gonna stay associated. And I have my little guy. Wow! Yeah, no, I have so much work to do. Yeah, and this is the cool thing with finding, like, random dead stuff. There's a lot of things that'll kill you. Everything has its story. And I don't know what happened to this bird, and I'm finding myself more and more curious. Because, like, the dove that got hit by a car, that dove got hit by a car. Like, there's no mystery left. But with this little guy, this is strange. I don't know what happened there. Same thing, like, I don't know if how many of you guys watched me do the little sharp-shinned hawk. That was another mystery. It had some damage, it had some things, but nothing was like, this is what killed it. So, yeah, it's like as soon as I step outside of the museum lab, where I was surrounded by biologists and entomologists and all these, like, really cool people with PhDs who could answer my weird questions, now I get the really strange specimens. Luckily, I still talk to a lot of them, so I can send them weird pictures, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get photographs of those eggs and stuff and send them to Alan. Wow, what a day. Okay, well, this was cool. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. That went in directions I wasn't anticipating. The finder of this specimen, I don't think has popped on tonight, so I'm going to contact them and let them know that it was a weird specimen, and they'll flip. It'll be fun. For people who might find birds, if you don't live in Chicago, don't pick them up, because you can't mail them to me. It's illegal. But if you happen to be in the Chicago area, especially if I can drive to your place, it's legal for me to pick them up. So just in case anybody had that in their mind, just unless you're in the Chicagoland region, don't do it. Okay. Well, cool. Then I'm wrapping up. Does anybody have any final questions or thoughts before I call it a night? Because I'm filled with questions, but I'm going to have to do more work. Actually, I'm going to write down nuggets. I moved my notebook. Okay, well, later... I swear, I live in a house that's absolutely full of notebooks, but when I want one, they're not at hand. Alright. Alright, not here. I'll catch you next time. Wrap it on up. Quail... Blah, blah, blah. I feel like there was something I was going to ask I needed to look up that wasn't just the fly eggs. Oh, I wanted to look up that hair thing. Okay, those are my two things. All right, cool. Then everybody, I'm dropping off. Let's go see if there's anybody to raid, because that's the thing I always forget to do. But I remembered just now, as part of my incredibly long goodbye. Do what you can. Okay, there's a couple options on here. I got leatherworking. I got Warhammer minis. I got a just chatting stream from someone who only has 2 viewers. She's a sweetie. She's very nice. What's this guy doing? Blacksmithing. Let's see. I don't know any of these people really well. Yeah, let's go check out the Warhammer minis. Her stuff looks really cool. So, Jenny Joy. Let's see. Raid channel. Boom. Alright, so we're gonna go raid someone painting Warhammer minis, so you have a nice, like, cool down with beautiful art on the way out of the night. So, thanks again, everybody, for hanging out with me, and I will catch you all next time.